How's it going, guys? Today, I'm pleased to announce that we have Zara Miller, who is an author, writing and publishing expert, script writer aficionado. Zara, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, just real quick, a little introduction as to who you are, your creative journey, or what your current title is, if you could, you know, reduce it to something.
Man, yes, I wear many hats, you're correct, but I think I would reduce it to writer.
Okay.
I'm a novelist. I do write books, currently working on my second novel, and I
Great.
recently finished a script for an audio drama. But
Wow.
if I had to reduce it, I would be, yes, writer.
Yeah. And now all the links that we'll have for all your works we'll put in the description below. The audio drama you're talking about is Midnight Express. Is that
Correct,
right?
yes.
Right. What
Yes.
was it like coming up with the ideas for that?
Oh man. I'm always, yeah, oh my God. It was such a trip. It was such a joy and such a trip to come up with that. I
Mhm.
pitched the idea around September 2023, and it took me a
Wow.
good 3 months to finish it. I was kind of in a weird space. 2023 was just a weird year for me in general.
Yeah, yeah, it was.
Oh, no, would not want to repeat that one.
Yeah.
But I'm also grateful because I'm always inspired by classics and by classic writers.
Hmm.
And sort of, I do believe that when you are in that weird place, not necessarily in a miserable place, but just sort of not the hap not at your happiest that you
Yeah.
could be,
Yeah.
that's when the creative juices start to flow.
Hmm.
And so yeah, I was kind of sad, and I wanted to write about nostalgia
Yeah.
and grief,
Hmm.
which is what I felt a lot of last
Hmm.
year. And so I did it. Hopefully, people
Yeah.
will enjoy it. Yeah.
No, I'm sure people enjoy. Have you gotten any feedback on it so far?
Yes, actually. I got a feedback from one of my friends in London,
Yeah.
from college.
Hmm.
She said that it made her very sad, but very hopeful at the
Yep.
same time.
Yeah. This entire brand is just about finding ways to unlock your creativity.
Yeah,
And a lot of people either they have started a project or they have no idea how to get what's in their head on paper. And I saw you have an article where you kind of talk about how to take those final steps to really kind of push your novel to the finish line. Like
yeah.
in your personal experience, like what ways do you actually can you motivate yourself to push over, those final few steps? Because it is kind of um it is tough to really motivate yourself day in and
Yeah.
day out to get back in that creative headspace.
Yeah, for sure. Oh man, such a good question. I feel like every time I answer this question, I get this asked a lot.
Yeah.
I come up with a different answer
It might not be one
because,
answer.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
There definitely isn't one
Hmm.
answer for sure. Everyone's process is different, and also as you evolve as an artist, as a writer, as a creator, your
Hmm.
process changes.
Yep.
I would not write what I'm writing now 10 years ago because
Yep.
I had not lived that experience yet.
Right.
And so 10 years ago, it was enough to just sort of call my mom and be like, can you cheer me up a little bit? I need to write something. And that would be enough, right?
Yep.
Because I was a
Mm.
20-year
Yeah.
old. And now it takes a little bit more. So I'm just going to give general advice for what I do now.
Hmm.
I tune out the noise.
Hmm.
It is so hard to do anything when you are surrounded by the internet and everything that you find on it. Even if you find yourself alone and sort of writing alone, like there's no people around you to sort of butt in and interrupt you,
Yeah.
there's still this presence and this, omnipotent presence of the internet that seems, just
Yeah.
so far stretching.
Hmm.
And so if you can sort of disconnect from the internet and just
Hmm.
write on your laptop,
Hmm.
unless you need to research something, but I recommend doing that before you go into the
Yeah.
creative process and just sort of find a quiet place, go to a library to sort of feel connected to books, to
Hmm.
writing. And yeah, that's what I've been doing for the past 3 months, truly,
And
because
and that's great.
for
To
sure.
your point, what you were saying about disconnecting, almost do you think that it's harder to be a writer in this day and age as opposed to say like the 20s when you didn't have all of these extraneous variables that are just pulling your attention in any given direction.
Yeah, man, absolutely, 100%. I find that I saw this meme on the internet, obviously.
Yeah.
Where else? What else and where else? I saw this meme on the internet. One girl wrote, man, I miss those days when I could just study for 10 hours straight and not be distracted by anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I miss those days too. I'm
Yeah.
a 90s, I'm a 90s kid. I grew up when
Yep. Yep.
Amazon didn't exist and all of that. So yeah, I remember those days, and I
Yeah.
cannot find myself, like, I struggle a lot
Hmm.
with writing and focusing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, absolutely. It was easier, and also I would say people were more connected.
Hmm.
So they talk to each other more. And as writers, ask
Hmm.
any writer
Yeah.
how we collect our material.
Hmm.
We're creeps, we're lurkers. We sort of go
Yeah.
to coffee shops and listen
Yep.
to conversations,
Hmm.
and you just don't get that same of connections when you're online,
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
how people talk online, they don't necessarily interact that way in real life.
Yeah.
And so what it creates is that as a writer, you need to be empathetic and you need to create a picture of a person
Hmm.
and not some sort of online caricature. So
Yeah.
when you're just getting your resources online,
Hmm.
it might actually make you a worse writer, because like you
Yeah.
might come up with a person that is not a real human. And
Yeah.
I
And
actually see this a lot in media, like these sort of caricatures of people instead
hmm.
of real people,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, what is going on? And then I realized these writers, these people are online, like they write what they see,
Hmm.
but they don't write what they see in real life. They write what they see online and
Yeah.
sort of listen to this feedback. And I'm like, my man, my brother in Christ,
Yeah.
people on the internet, they don't interact this way in real life.
Yeah.
That's not, we all have an online persona. It's escapism. It's totally fine. I think we need that.
Hmm.
Um, but if you're going to write a piece of work that
Hmm.
connects on a soul level,
Right.
um, you don't go on the internet to look for
Yeah.
interactions.
Yeah. Now, that's a really good point. Like saying that when you're looking at somebody online, yet you could be creating a caricature of an actual person, and it could be disingenuous, and your viewer and your readers would
Yeah,
recognize that immediately. Does that call for a certain level of self-awareness or curiosity that it's time, maybe every writer should be questioning how they view the world, how they view this person? Because I would think if you have some sort of self-awareness that you would be able to ask yourself, is this really a genuine depiction of a person or a character? Like, do you go through that kind of self-reflection?
absolutely. I question what I see and what I hear all the time.
Hmm. Yeah,
I grew up in an environment that encouraged me to think independently.
great.
And so everything I hear, I take with a grain of salt, and I
Hmm.
ponder, and I'm like, is this how it really is?
Hmm.
Or is this person's view tailored specifically to their experiences? And it usually is. So it doesn't mean that they're wrong,
Yeah.
because they are telling you their truth. This is what they've been through.
Hmm.
And but that's not, pure happiness is not the entire human story, or pure misery is just not the entire human story.
Right.
So I absolutely question everything I see, everything I hear. But what's really important about being a writer, the
Hmm.
most important thing, I think, even more important than your talent or even your skill,
Hmm.
is empathy. And I say this always, because you got to understand, unless you're writing a one woman show or a one man
Yeah.
show, you're gonna have to put yourself in the shoes of people that you don't necessarily agree with. You
Yeah.
don't have the same experiences, the same political views,
Oh,
the
yeah.
same anything. And but I've heard Lin Manuel Miranda talking about this a lot when he was writing Hamilton, that he doesn't agree with Jefferson on anything, but he had
Hmm.
to write him and sort of put
Hmm.
himself in the shoes of this man to
Yeah.
write authentically. And I'm like, man, that's such a good
Yeah.
viewpoint on writing, because yes, it's absolutely right.
Right.
If you're writing Thomas Jefferson, you have to put yourself in his shoes and see the world as he saw the world.
Yeah.
And you have to do the same with your characters, with your OCs, absolutely.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's like creating the perfect antagonist, and the perfect antagonist would be,
Yeah,
somebody who you might agree with
a
what
little
they
bit.
believe, but not the means to how they get it.
Yes,
You
yes,
know.
absolutely. Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so your book, I Am Cecilia, that
Mhm.
debuted in 2021.
Yes.
Was that based off of, first off, do you have like a brief synopsis as to what the book is about?
Of course, it's a coming of age story about a girl named Cecilia. She's a gypsy,
Mm,
half gypsy, half white girl, and we follow her on a journey of becoming a woman from the ages of 12 till the ages of 20, I think.
okay.
And she has a motley crew of friends, sort of these strange people that no one understands, in a
Mhm,
viewpoint of the society, strange people that no one understands,
mhm,
and it's about chosen found family
mhm.
and a little bit of love.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Now I have to ask, in terms of finding inspiration for the story, is it completely fiction or are there elements of reality in it?
Oh my God, you're coming for me, aren't you?
No.
A little. It's mostly it's no,
So,
it's mostly fiction. There are characters that are inspired by the people
mhm.
that I knew, but no one person in that book is a complete carbon copy of
would you
anyone I know.
would you recommend, because a lot of people, like one of the things that you wrote in your article about, pushing your book to its finality is
Yeah,
a lot of people get motivation if the story is very true and it's very personal. But I've
yeah.
seen people write stories, that were carbon copies of their life experiences. Would you recommend doing that, or would you recommend kind of like changing it to the point, where it still remains anonymous or it's not as painful, or, what's your process, your decision in terms of how true something is?
Yeah, it depends on the genre, and it depends on your creative process. So if
Mm,
there is an element of catharsis to your
mm,
writing process, and you're like, I
mm,
gotta get this on paper, and I need people to know that this is what I've been through,
mm.
even though it's fiction,
Yeah,
then you just need to communicate to that. And
yeah.
there's a caveat to that, of course, that you should communicate that to
Mm,
people that you're writing about.
mhm.
Um, doesn't matter if they hurt you, offended you, is just, basic principle of ethics if you're writing
Yeah,
about something in real life, because you
mm,
never know how that's going to impact their life.
yeah,
And so, writing a book about someone and not giving them the heads up, hey, this is what I'm going to write.
yeah. True.
I don't care. I don't care how you feel about it. You're
Yeah,
absolutely free to say that it's my right to do this.
yeah.
But I just wanted to give you, like, be polite and give you a heads up that this is what I'm going to
Right,
write. And
right.
they either going to reject it, or
Mm,
they're going to accept it. But yeah,
mhm.
that's my advice.
Do you have any advice for people who are trying to write about something, not just personal, but maybe traumatic or something that they have negative feelings about, and that's the thing that's stopping them from putting pen to paper? Not so much the lack of creativity, but the overabundance of, vivid memories that it's hard for them to focus on it for any lengthy period of time, but they need to push that project to the end. Like, have you
For
gone through
sure.
that yourself?
Oh yeah. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. No, absolutely.
It's tough.
Um,
It's really tough.
it's so hard because literally it can trigger a PTSD response.
Yeah.
It can
Yeah.
trigger a panic attack. If
Hmm.
it can.
Hmm.
So I would just say to, again, the process is different for everybody, but like, being mindful of what you're trying to achieve here. Like, is this
Hmm.
helping me,
Yeah.
or is this hurting me? And am I doing this because I'm trying to get revenge, or am I getting this because there must be somebody out there who's going to read this book and be like, oh my God, I've been through the same thing. Because
Right.
that was my main motivation. I
Mm-hmm.
met just amazing group of people in
Mm-hmm.
college, and I realized, oh man, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
They've been through this, and so
Mm.
I thought, oh my God, how many more people have been through the same experiences that I have, and maybe they don't have a validation,
Hmm.
out there in life. So I would say people need a mirror. They need to see
Hmm.
themselves in something that's very
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah.
But you, as a writer, need to sort that out for yourself. Your motivation and your why behind writing a
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. And that's been the general consensus I've gotten from people who have told me that they've struggled, but they did push through to talk
Yeah,
about their traumas, through the whatever book, whether it's fiction or not, is that they were doing it for, at some point it stopped being about them and it started being about,
yeah,
other people and doing it
for
for them
sure.
because they
Yeah.
need, you're telling a story, somebody needs to hear it.
Mm.
Um, was that always why you went to writing, or how did you get, what's the Zara Miller origin story? How did this, because it's so, from where you are now back to like where you started, there's such a journey there. Like
Yeah.
what was the, the reason why you decided to become, such a prolific writer?
Writer. Um, the Zara Miller origin story. I love how you put that. It sounds like I'm important. I'm not. No, I love it. Yeah, so it was my writing was always my coping mechanism. I'm
Hmm.
actually a little mad at myself that I started a little bit later in life.
Hmm.
Um,
Tell me about it.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Oh my God. But you know what? I'm satisfied with where I am right now. But the origin is that I was bullied a lot at school, man.
Yeah.
I was a nerd. I was a weirdo. I
Hey,
was at
nerds
15. I was
rule the world now, so
they do, but 15 years ago they didn't. Oh
I
man, it
know.
was
Yeah.
tough. And especially being a girl, you know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
there was this, now it's less prevalent, I would say, which is good. We're moving towards equality, but 15
Yeah.
years ago, like being a nerd was a
Mm.
male thing, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it was the boys club.
Yeah.
And so, you know, at 16, I was teaching English, sort of going straight from class to other to another class. Yeah, so and that sort of thing. So when I came home, I was just like, I need an outlet for this anger, otherwise
Hmm.
it's not going to end well for me.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to be. I knew that I had a future. I just didn't know what it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to end up in a gutter somewhere or hurt myself or hurt others because of
Yeah.
what was happening to me. And I was really sad. So
Right.
I started correcting
Hmm.
what was happening to me during the day in the story. So I was literally rewriting
Hmm.
the scenes from the day
Yeah.
into into how I wanted them to go. And then I
Mm.
started writing a lot of fan fiction that I wasn't publishing a lot.
That's
Now
amazing.
that yeah, I know. Thank you.
What's all right,
Yeah.
all right, real quick. What's the fan fiction that you, or like episode or something that you've written that you're most proud of?
Oh my God. Okay, Archie comics.
Oh my God.
Yes, yeah, I know. Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
That's a whole
You'll
different
never
conversation.
that yes, that's a whole different conversation. You will never find it. I will
Yeah.
never publicly acknowledge that fan fiction. No, but it was amazing. You know, I had all these stories in my head that I wanted to, my stories that I wanted to rewrite my life according to,
Hmm.
but also the stories that just made me frustrated. You know, like Archie comics
Yeah.
or Star Wars. I was
Hmm.
into Star Wars a lot. You know, and rewriting narratives. I never published it until way later,
Hmm.
way new material actually, right before I started writing the book, to sort of getting my first book, to sort of getting to the groove of writing again.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was young, when I was like 12, 13, it was just for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really
You
good.
like, you saying that you're a 90s kid. So like I'm a 90s kid too. So like our generation was in that weird sweet spot that was transitioning from no smart technology to smart technology. So like we didn't
Yes.
really have cyberbullying. Like when I was in fifth grade, like AOL Instant Messenger just became a thing. So it was
Mm,
still like physical bullying, kids like pushing up against you, like judging you. And now like I can't imagine the kind of chips on the shoulders that like some kids get these days for their writing because whatever mistake you make, it's public and it's permanent and it's spread
yeah.
around the
Yeah.
entire internet. And like
Yeah.
like there's so much trauma that kids have to deal with now, but like we at least like we saw the past in the 90s and early 2000s where with the huge shift in just cultural behavior. Like
Yeah.
I I found catharsis in writing with a pen on paper,
Mm,
feeling it, and typing, I can get that, but it's harder for me. I don't know
mm,
why, you
mm.
know. Um, although my
Might be
handwriting
the
is
way you
absolute
were. Might be
garbage.
the way you were raised. Yeah, for sure. You were.
Probably. But
Yeah, I didn't get the internet connection until I was like 15, like until I actually went to high school. Like my parents were like, no, you need to do the groundwork.
yeah.
Go to the
Yeah.
library and read up on it.
Yeah.
So only
Would
when
you
I
do it? Would you? do you agree with that method, or like would you relax that for, for your kids?
You know what? I think that the kids don't really need an internet connection until they go to high school. I think so. I think I would agree with
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
because like when you're in middle school, those are such formative years, and in high school obviously too. But as the sort of schoolwork gets tougher, I can't imagine not having an internet connection when I
Yeah.
was in
Oh
high
yeah.
school. It
Oh
was
yeah.
just,
Yeah.
so it's about, at that point, it's about practicality. And
Hmm.
also 15, 16-year-old kid is way ahead
Hmm.
of an 11-year-old or a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So yes, I think I would agree with that. And
Yeah.
frankly, kind of, I mean, I'm an old lady. What can I say? But like, it scares me when I see 2-year-olds with tablets in their
Yeah. Oh yeah.
hands. I'm
Yeah.
like, what the hell? What the hell are you a parent for?
Well, that's the
Like,
thing. It's a judgment on the parents because the parents are
mm,
giving it to them as a way to get them to stop doing whatever they're doing.
yeah, for
And
sure. And then obviously I don't know the science behind it, so I'm not going to comment on that.
yeah.
But I know for sure that if you start distracting your kid this early, they're not
Hmm.
going to be able to focus, diagnosis or no diagnosis,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
nothing at all.
And
It's just sort of
yeah.
muscle memory. It's a sort of learned behavior. So,
Yeah. And well, and as a writer, if you have your if you have your face stuck in a tablet or your phone or something, there's no experiencing, there's no inspiration to capitalize on later. It's,
yeah.
it's times are changing, but um your article writing predates your book.
Mm.
So what what was the transition? Like what changed in your head from going from just writing recreationally to thinking, "Oh, wow, I can do this as a profession."
Mm.
It might
Yes,
not be
good
as
question.
smooth as linear, but
No,
because that's a big
not at all.
confidence.
It was multiple things.
Mhm.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Uh, yeah. I mean, yeah. I had to pull myself by the bootstraps and sort of fish that confidence out of summer for sure. That was a big part of it. It was multiple things. So the first thing was, at some point when I graduated college,
Mhm.
I was like, I'm really unhappy, and I
Mhm.
don't know why. Like at that time, everything was, I was healthy. I just graduated. I was like, everything's fine. You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
I have no reason to be this unhappy. I'm like, what's going
Yeah.
on? And I found out that it might have been because I was on the wrong path.
Mm.
And as I just sort of, I sat with myself for several evenings, several days, and just sort of contemplated what's going on with me. And I realized that originally I wanted to study journalism, but I
Hmm.
just didn't have that confidence yet, and
Yeah.
I also didn't maybe get the support that I needed
Hmm.
to enter that career.
Yeah.
So I was like, maybe that's it. Maybe I was supposed to be a journalist. I
Mhm.
really enjoy this. I've always enjoyed writing. Like, that was always my escape. It's the only thing that doesn't feel like work.
Hmm.
So I was like, you know what? Let me just post something for free
Hmm.
on oh my God, what was it? Was it fanfiction or .net, or was it AO3? I don't remember which
Okay.
one. On one of those platforms. Let me just post this story and see how people react to it.
Yeah.
And the reactions were overwhelmingly positive. And I was like,
Hmm.
okay, so it's not in my head. I can actually
Yeah.
write. I started a blog. I
Hmm.
started writing sort of with no direction. It didn't
Hmm.
have like a, like a branding or like
Yeah.
what's my niche. I'm like, no, I'm just gonna write whatever I want.
Yep.
And for some reason, that started to gain attention.
Hmm.
And so I'm like, you know what? Let me just enter this career for real.
Yeah.
Um, so I came across the Teen Magazine, a
Hmm.
wonderful platform for
Hmm.
young writers. I was
Hmm.
24.
Hmm.
And I started writing for them, and I started to think of myself as a writer, as a
Hmm.
professional writer,
Yeah.
and I sort of adjusted all of my social media and all of my like my entire online personality around
Hmm.
I am a writer. If I want people to see me as a writer, I have to see myself as a writer.
Right.
So I changed my LinkedIn, I changed my Instagram, everything to writer.
Yeah.
I have a blog. I write for this magazine. I'm a writer. I don't care
Yep.
what anyone else says.
Right.
And then I was approached to write a book because I saw myself as a writer, and someone else saw that I was a writer, and they were like,
Oh,
"You
okay. So
write?"
somebody approached you to write it.
Yes,
That's
somebody.
interesting. That's
Yes,
great.
yes. I was approached by Eric Esther.
Mhm.
He's a Georgetown University professor, and he runs a publishing company and
Wow.
a couple of imprints.
Hmm.
And he was like, "Do you want to write a book?
Yeah.
Do you have a story?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Yes, I do." Yes,
Just
I
so
do.
happens.
Oh, it just so happens that yes, I do, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was a wonderful process,
Mm.
and his editors helped me polish it, and we released it under one of his imprints, and we sort of took off from there.
Wow. That's amazing. That's a prime example of someone who just carves out opportunity. And like,
No,
you know, well, like there's no way, there's no one way to go about something, but if you don't
no,
show, if you don't showcase at least your work, even just for free, it's
yeah,
probably how it's going to have to start unless
yeah,
unless
for
you have
sure.
connections.
Unless
Um,
you, yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Unless you have connection, and that's such a huge part of it, and it's a huge internet debate right now. Nepotism and all, and those
Hmm.
people are absolutely right. And I think that um, some of the nepo babies that I see that are acknowledging it have
Yep.
sort of I don't want to say that they got off scot-free, but
Hmm.
like the general response of the public to people who acknowledge that yes, this is why I got opportunities. It's just
Yeah.
how it is. I'm sorry.
It is
and,
what it is.
and it is what it is. And
Yeah.
you know what? They're right. Like, what were they supposed to do? They didn't
Yeah.
choose this family. They were born into it, and
Yeah.
they took
Yeah.
and they took advantage of it. And
Yeah.
everybody else in their place would do the same thing.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
but you know what I find the biggest problem with is when people don't acknowledge something that
Hmm.
is right before the public's eye. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like,
Yeah.
you're telling me I'm seeing a pineapple when I'm seeing an orange. Like,
Yep.
stop lying to me. This
Yeah.
is how
Yeah.
it is. Yeah. So
Especially now. I mean, like we need
yeah,
writers more than ever to call a spade a spade. I mean, like, writers are some of the most, they're astute, they're observant, they're curious, and then they're just like, yeah, like, I mean, that's what journalism was supposed to be. It was always supposed to be, was to,
they've always had a they've always you're absolutely right. They've always had a tough go of it, but recently it has become almost, I don't want to complain because I love my job and I'm so
yeah.
blessed to have this job. But also,
Mhm.
if the amount of times I have been asked in this job
Mhm.
by the interviewee or the source for them to review the article
Mhm.
before it goes to print, and I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't control the narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
you can't. You get a chance to speak,
Mhm.
to convey your opinions.
Mhm.
I am always on record saying you are free to decline to answer. You can
Yeah.
answer however you want,
Right.
but once it's done, it's done. And I, as a journalist, need to convey the story as objectively as possible. And if you
Yeah.
start messing with my article on in order to make yourself look good,
Mhm.
that really grinds my gears.
Yeah, it becomes then audience based journalism.
It's a
And
puff piece. It becomes a
yeah,
puff piece.
yeah,
What are
yeah,
we, New York Post?
yeah. And oh my God, yeah, that's a thing. That's a whole different thing. I don't have another hour to rant about that.
For sure.
Um, Now in our line of work, whether it's writing, whether it's acting or music, all of those things people have started out as just a hobby, and then and then just you notice a lot of people can't make that transition into making it a professional career. So when you made
Yeah.
that switch, I know you said that you changed all your social media and you kind of
Yeah.
surrounded yourself with the idea that you are a professional writer. But did you
Mhm.
notice anything different, either like work ethic or schedule or the time you were allotted for it? Like, how did you make that transition from hobby to career?
Well, I started taking it seriously because it was literally my life on the
Hmm.
line. I was like, I can't do anything else.
Yeah.
And actually, the one person who said the same thing that I found sort of parasocial camaraderie with was Ed
Mhm.
Sheeran. And he said the
Really?
same thing. Yeah, he was like, I was horrible when I started, but I was like, I have to keep going at this because
Hmm.
there is nothing else I can do. And
Yeah.
that was very true for me. And there's sort of what I noticed was I started doing like these daily affirmations to myself. Like you've
Hmm.
tried everything else. You
Yeah.
really did. Like you studied diplomacy. You tried
Yeah.
to be a government
Yeah.
official.
Yeah.
You did a bunch of gigs in London and in Prague. Like you've been at this and
Hmm.
nothing works.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
like you know what I mean? So that's what I noticed is that the confidence comes from the fact that you know in your heart
Mm.
you gotta you gotta do this because there's nothing else you can do. There's nothing
Yeah.
else you are good
Yeah.
at. And
Yeah.
it's true.
Hmm.
I was in a service industry. I was in a marketing industry and
Hmm.
I was trying to be a government official.
Yeah.
And like I wasn't doing a terrible job, but I wasn't doing a great job and I was also really unhappy.
Yeah,
So
and that's the bottom line, And when
yes.
people ask, like, "Well, aren't you, aren't isn't that a little like selfish? You think that this is the only thing that you could do?" It's like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah.
It's even as writer, it's such a hard thing to put into words, like how this
Yeah.
is the only thing that
I
I
can
can
do.
do,
Yeah.
and it's just, yeah, like one day maybe somebody will be able to put it down on words. Um, one of
Hopefully.
the last few things in the last few minutes that we have here is
Sure.
I'd like to go through a series of questions, three just little like fun ones. Um,
Okay.
if you could be part of any creative work in history,
Hmm.
past or present, what would it be and why? If you could have had a
Um,
hand in anything,
Ernest Hemingway, For Whom the Bell Tolls.
that is the first time I've ever heard that's the answer. That's so interesting. I love Hemingway. So you love the classics. I love the classics too.
Yes.
Why For Whom the Bell Tolls?
I fell in love with the book from the very first page. There's a
Hmm.
quote from an English poet.
Hmm.
It's not a quote actually; it's an excerpt from his poem, and it just
Hmm.
speaks to me on such a visceral level.
Hmm.
And Hemingway put it there because that was the embodiment of the book.
Hmm.
And I started reading it, and sort of that was I read it when I was 12 or 11. I don't remember. I probably shouldn't have been allowed to, but I did read it. And ever since then, this book was my guiding principle. Sort of never ask for whom the bell tolls.
Hmm.
They toll for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Like you are part of a collective, and you
Hmm.
should always do your best
Hmm.
to adhere to that principle that
Yeah.
you make some decisions and those
Hmm.
decisions have a domino effect.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
man, if I could have been there when Hemingway wrote it, I would
Would
be like,
you would you have changed anything if you had a hand in it, or would you just
um,
like to be a part of it?
honestly, I haven't read it in a while. I do remember that it was quite long,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
that's a kid's point of view. Maybe it's actually not. But I remember that it was quite long, and Hemingway is sort of famous for his tirades.
Mm.
He
Right.
goes on these, like there's rarely a dialogue, and he just goes on these
Mm.
like, suffering writer
Yep.
um, tirades. So I would have probably made it a little bit shorter. Some things might have been cut, but
Yeah.
the overall message of the book
Yeah.
and how it's written is just it speaks to
Leaves
me.
of Grass do that usually for me. What would?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Good
Um,
one. Yeah, that's
yeah,
a good
but
one for
For
sure.
Whom the Bell, so I gotta go back and read that. I had a whole thing where I reread all of the books that I was forced to read in high school because I'm doing it
Right.
on my own volition now, and I loved
Mm,
every single one of them. Just because I
absolutely.
wasn't
Actually,
forced to do it, and I'm not a fast reader, so reading it at my own pace without a grade on the other end was perfect for me. But like classics are
agree.
amazing. But do you read any classical script like theatrical scripts or stage plays or anything like that?
Funny you should ask that. Not when I was younger, but
Mhm.
recently I've been asked by Teen Journal to do a review of Wole Soyinka's play, um,
Wow.
Lion Jewel, and oh my gosh, what was it called? I was running. Jesus
We'll edit
Christ,
that out.
Lion, the Lion and the Jewel. Yes, the Lion and the Jewel. And it's such an interesting play.
Yep.
First of all, he's an award-winning. He's a Nobel laureate.
Hmm.
I'd never heard of him before. I don't know how. He never
Mhm.
sort of never got on my radar.
Yep.
But ever since I sort of was asked to read this
Hmm.
play and review it, I fell in love with his work, and I fell down the rabbit hole of all of his books.
Yeah.
And that was the out of all of his like catalog, The Lion and the Jewel is what really caught my attention.
Hmm.
It's such a, it's a love triangle.
Yeah.
It's such a simple narrative, and those are the best because the
Yeah.
most people resonate with it.
Hmm.
Not simplistic, simple.
Yeah.
There's a difference between that. But yes, so I would say The Lion and the Jewel by Wallace Soyinka. Yeah.
Interesting. We'll have to check that out. All right.
Sure.
Zara, this has been an amazing conversation. I can't wait to showcase you to the rest of my audience and then for you to show this interview to the rest to your audience and your followers. Where
Yeah.
can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram under
Mhm.
Zara Miller Author.
Okay.
I post a lot of fun things there. You can find me on LinkedIn as well
Hmm.
and on the main page of the teen magazine. I have an author
Perfect.
profile
All
there,
right.
so you
That's
can
always
talk
a
to me
good
there.
It's
Yes,
like always a good place to find you. All those
absolutely.
links will be down in the description below, along with anything else that you might want down in there. But there's nothing else. This has been an interview with Zara Miller for the Writers Unblocked Interview Series. Zara, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. This has
All right.
been a joy.
All right. Take care.